Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Star Trek Critic, where each episode starts with 100 points and we rip it to shreds for anything we can think of. Today's episode is Friday's Child, simply named because Star Trek aired on Fridays. Or is because the baby was born on a Friday. Or the baby was born in a TGI Fridays. But the episode being named after a nursery rhyme that says Friday's Child is loving and giving? Totally false. This episode starts with a perfect "that's what she said" moment. The planet Capella represents Vietnam, where two major powers want to come in and play friends. But the way McCoy describes them when he was there on a humanitarian mission several years before, they have an incredible lack of interest in outsiders who normally violate their customs too easily. It looks like Sulu is the only one on the bridge. Their goal is a mining treaty, but it looks like they have to walk on eggshells down there. And why are they talking to a tribal leader and not the bigger government on the planet? Plus, the culture of this planet is hundreds of years behind the Federation. In short, they are breaking the Prime Directive, so -1 point. This is a really good transition shot. The next point is lost for beaming down too close to the encampment. If they beamed down farther away and spent a few minutes scouting the Capellans, they would have noticed a Klingon running around among them. But they didn't do that, and now the hyperactive red shirt is dead. And I will have to take a point for security since he isn't paid to shoot Klingons on sight. The next point is lost since the captain and first officer beamed down together. They should have sent down an expert first contact team like they're supposed to. Also, the security guard should not have died instantly from that spinning star. And McCoy didn't beam him up to the ship, so -1 more point. The Klingon beat them to the planet and now has Mob's ear in telling them that the Earthmen are hostile. The Capellans never do say what they'd like in payment for the Topoline rocks. So this negotiation is going to take a while. The situation gets worse since he claims the Klingon turned in his weapons and other devices and expects Kirk to do the same, which means they are being held hostage. They should have just beamed back up. And they're like, hey, the trick worked. The good news is that they're being held hostage in some pretty nice accommodations. Chekhov searches the skies by playing Pong. Although he won't admit it, Spock superglued his fingers to his nose.
Be very careful with that instant glue, don't you?
She's bringing them food, but it comes at a price. Just what is she offering? Looks like the price is too high, so I recommend he does not touch it. Here comes the tier, Aka'ar. He is the leader of the 10 tribes of Capella. Does that then make him Acapella? This is Eileen, his young wife who is pregnant with his son, who will be the new ruler. Mob, of course, represents the upstart youth. The Klingon is saying exactly what they want to hear. But Aka'ar has years of wisdom and wants to hear both sides. Personally, I think Aka'ar should sell his mineral rights to both sides. He doesn't have to pick just one, and the planet is loaded. There would be no problem having two mines thousands of miles away from each other, and Aka'ar would be a billionaire. Back on the Enterprise, Chekhov is still playing the Pong game. Uh-oh, it looks like he lost. That's the early version of the Xbox controller. Just what is Scotty talking about? And this distress call is totally fake. Let's see if they fall for it. Mob makes his move, kills Aka'ar, and takes over his tier. Kirk uses this time to try and escape, but it doesn't work. Now Mob makes his announcement, and both the Klingon and Kirk make that look that says, shit, we are both screwed now. The next point is lost here. Not that they believe the distress call is real, but because Scotty doesn't send a second ground crew in a couple of shuttlecraft down to the surface since they lost contact with Kirk, and now they're going to leave them. The next point is lost since this cultural trait would be impossible to maintain. There would be so many people tripping each other up just so they will have to die. Eventually, there would be no one left. And now Eileen wants to watch Kirk die because he tried to save her life. She's really unpredictable. She must be an Earthwoman. Kirk is screwed now. Look closely in the lower left corner for a reflection. Other than that, this is a great shot of Scotty taking the Enterprise and leaving Kirk behind. And the search for the ship under attack begins. As you can see, even Kirk knows there should be a recon party arriving, but Scotty just left them. This scene looks very much like the Bob Hope and Bing Crosby patty cake routine. And it worked. And the Klingons getting a little tired of Mob right now. The next point is lost for this captain's log talking down to the audience, since they think we forgot what happened before the commercials. Just look at this beautiful location, the first outdoor set of the second season. I think Kirk is going to go out and look for a giant lizard. McCoy becomes a grouchy old country doctor. Kirk sneaks off. He secretly wants to find Ruth again. -1 point here, since McCoy has been here on a medical mission before and knows the Capellans are a little touchy about touching. Now for the slap fest. This looks pretty obvious. You really don't need to be a doctor to figure this one out. And this really isn't an awkward moment. After all, he is a doctor. But for 1960s TV, it does offer a little bit of comic relief. Kirk returns from beating the tar out of Finnegan. The next point is lost, since the use of sound waves would not only cause an avalanche, but also bust out everyone's eardrums as well. And another point is lost, since you can tell in the close-ups that this is an indoor set. Now, are their communicators ruined? The gravity must be lower on this planet because some of these boulders bounce. If the planet's name is Capella, does that make this Rockapella? Look closely, the Klingon gets the communicator, kills the guy, and gets his phaser back. They're like, okay, now what? Our pretty outfits are getting dirty. McCoy gets to tell off the captain of the ship. Usually he bickers with Spock, but they are taking a break this week. It almost looks like a dirt road down at the bottom, but not enough to be a real dirt road. Dr. McCoy is not an escalator. Kirk's like, I wish I had this knife when the Gorn was here. I will have to take another point here, not because the Enterprise is addressed by name, since it is possible the freighter knows they are nearby, but they could have analyzed the distress call beforehand to see if it was fabricated. How can he get away with saying this in the dark in 60s TV? Sounds like they're passing drugs around now. And I'm not even going to comment on this one at all.
The time has come.
Spock and Kirk guard the maternity ward. McCoy talks Eileen into wanting the baby. But this is the 1960s, so we don't get to watch. We have to wait in the lobby. I doubt if this communicator will work. He just used it to blow up the rock. When Kirk and Spock wait for a baby to be born, they make bows and arrows. The back of Spock's shirt always gets bunched up. McCoy shows Spock how to hold a baby. So how long ago was McCoy on this planet? The Enterprise turns back. So I won't be taking a point for the reflection by the ship, but I will take a point for Chekhov saying that phrase was invented in Russia, because he's done it too many times now. And they're like, seriously? I guess she doesn't like him as much as we thought. Kirk and Spock joined Starfleet just so they could play cowboys and Indians. Chekhov, everything out there is alien. And this is a very rare shot of Sulu Scanner moving into position. The Klingon ship looks like an old iron that's been set over a hot flame. Capellans learn to march from Sand People.
And Sand People always ride single file to hide their numbers.
Of course, those bright colors are going to give them away in a second. Just what is the Klingon doing right now? It would be interesting to find out if the costume designer wanted the different colors to represent different ranks. If they did, it never made it into the script. For being warriors, they should know this is a terrible way to line up. However, I will give a shout out to the actors in those heavy costumes, because if Vasquez rocks, it's about 110 degrees outside. Here comes Eileen. It's always a good idea not to run after having a baby. She seems to have her own agenda, and for some reason doesn't want her own son to be the Tyr, which is odd. Once the Klingon is away, it gives Kirk and Spock the chance to shoot first. -1 point for an obvious stunt double. The Klingon shoots at Spock, then at a purple guard, and I'm not quite sure of the reasoning of Mob. Maybe he realized he was duped by the Klingon and got them into this mess, or he might have sacrificed himself to distract the Klingon from Kirk and Spock. We'll never really know. Now they all gather together and hover around the Klingon's body. Security shows up after hiding behind the rocks, and I will have to take a point since they are double file and the guards in the second rank are pointing their phasers at the backs of the front rank. Here comes the new Tyr. Yes! Kirk takes this time to pose like Peter Pan. McCoy shows her how to hold the baby. The next point is lost for saying Uchi Wuchi Coochie Coo too many times. Kirk and Spock once each, and McCoy 4 times. So that is 6 Uchi Wuchi Coochie Coo. And I think this is my best screenshot ever. And the episode ends with us learning that they secured the mining rights, and the new Tyr's name is Leonard James Akar, which totally pisses off Spock. And why are they leaving orbit at Warp 1? Warp 1 is very slow to get to the next planet, but it's also dangerous to go to Warp while in orbit, so -1 point. While Chekhov plays Pong, let's see who was on Capella. Bob Ravler is a stuntman with over 120 stunt screens credits to his name, and we will see him 2 more times in the original Star Trek. Ben Gage played Aka-R and was married to Esther Williams. Tej Andrews played Krath, has 70 screen credits. He was injured in Sicily during World War II. Michael Dante played Mob, has 60 acting credits, and was a minor league baseball player. Julie Newmar was gifted and graduated from high school at the age of 15. She has 75 screen credits. You will see her again on Buck Rogers, but she was most famous for her part as Catwoman on Batman. And Friday's Child ends with a whopping score of 85%. Thanks for viewing. Be sure to check out my other videos and playlists. Click that like button, the share button, the subscribe button, and I will see you again soon.